ॐ अज्ञानतिमिरन्धस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। श्रीचैतन्यमनोभीष्टं स्थापितं येन भूतले स्वयं रूपा कदा मह्यं ददाति स्वपदान्तिकं। वन्देऽहं श्रीगुरु श्रीयुतापदकमलं श्रीगुरून् वैष्णवांश्च श्रीरूपं साग्रजातां सहगना रघुनाथान्वितम् तं सजीवं साद्वैतं सावधूतं परिजनसहितं कृष्णचैतन्यदेवं श्रीराधा कृष्णपादान् सहगना ललिता श्रीविशाखान्वितंश्च। हे कृष्णा करुणा सिन्धु दीनबन्धु जगत्पते गोपेश गोपिकान्त राधाकान्त नमोऽस्तुते। तप्त कंचन गौरांगी राधे वृंदावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये। वंशकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्येव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। श्रीकृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्तवृंद। हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे। नमो विष्णुपदाय कृष्णपृष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदांत स्वामिनिति नामिने। नमस्ते सरस्वती देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्य देश तारिणे। So again, very happy to be with all of you. Let me try to share my screen, and Raktak Prabhu, you can let me know if it looks okay. So let's enter presenter mode. So is it completely fully visible, the whole page?
Yep, I can see your screen, Prabhu.
Okay, wonderful. So I thought when Raktak Prabhu, gave me the choice of topic, I thought that I would choose this particular one. There is hope. We all need hope in Krishna consciousness. So I thought that, I'll try to share some things that give me hope. And then perhaps we can have some discussion. So Prabhu, it's 1 hour total, including questions, right?
No, Prabhu, it's 1 hour for your talk. Till 3:08 go the talk around 9:25, 9:30. Then we have a little announcement in the middle, and then we can go to question answers. So, but plus minus is a little bit is okay.
Okay, Prabhu.
So if you want to finish a few minutes early here and there, so that's fine.
Thank you, Prabhu. So the way I've outlined this, so first we'll talk about how the mind, so it's really centered around the mind, how the mind is very powerful. And then we'll talk about how all our problems are ultimately due to the mind. And then we'll talk about how we can solve these problems by healing the mind. So first I thought I would, just begin with a couple of stories that I heard from Bhakti Vigyan Maharaj in a lecture. So this is just to illustrate how powerful the mind is. So he tells one story. There's one person who is kind of an engineer working in a big company somewhere, and he's working in a big refrigerator unit. He's trying to fix some problems from inside the unit. He's working late at night, and what happens is that everybody has left, and he's inside, and he figures out that he is locked inside. So obviously he's panicking, but there's nothing he can do. So he tries many ways to get out, but he cannot get out. And so, in the morning when the other workers come in, they open the door and they find him frozen to death. And, his body was showing that he had really frozen to death. But the really interesting part in all of this was that the refrigerator wasn't even plugged in. The refrigerator was not working, but he had frozen to death. Let me tell another story and then I will explain. So in ancient India, there was a king who had a little mischievous nature. His nature was, whoever was accused of a big crime, he would get them in and sentence them to death by snake bite. So he would have a snake bite the person, and then the person would die. Sorry for sharing morbid stories, but I think they illustrate a point. But in this one case, he brought a prisoner in, and instead of letting a snake loose on him, he just pricked him very, very lightly with a pin. And this person was blindfolded, so he didn't know what was going on. So this person was just pricked by a pin. And a few drops of blood came out, but very quickly the person turned black and blue and died. So in both these cases, we see how powerful the mind is, because it's not the physiology of these people that made them die. It was actually the power of the mind. So in the first case, the engineer actually believed that he was freezing to death. Even though the refrigerator wasn't plugged in, he thought he was freezing to death. All night he was locked in. He didn't die of starvation. He didn't die of any other reason, but he died of freezing. The symptoms in the postmortem report were that all the symptoms were as if he had frozen to death. And in the second case, it's obvious again that this person thought he was bitten by a snake. So these stories illustrate how much power the mind has on our body and ultimately all of our life. If you think about examples like Adolf Hitler, there was nothing special about his body. He didn't have any mystic powers like people in the olden ages did. All he had was a very strong, malicious determination to wreak havoc in the world. And because of that, see what he did. So it was his mind, that malicious, that mind full of malicious ambition, is what, and he channeled it in a very controlled way. That very nefarious ambition, he channeled it in a very controlled way. And look what he did to the world. So these are some examples on the negative side of how much power the mind has. But of course, there are many examples on the positive side, and that's what we want to focus on. There's one story. There was a lady whose child was trapped under the wheels of a car, a heavy car, weighing more than a ton. And there was no way she could have moved the car. Some of you may be familiar with the story. But somehow, displaying superhuman strength, she actually lifted the car and freed her child, her little child, from the car and from death. It wasn't her body that did it. It was the mind, the strength of the mind that did it. And then from everyday life, we have many examples, sort of at a more everyday level. I'm sure many of us have the experience that when we're not feeling well in our body, for example, we may have a headache or something, and the headache it's lasted all day, it's not going away. Suddenly a devotee comes, a very refreshing devotee, a devotee that we really like and appreciate. And we associate with them, and within a minute, the headache is completely gone. We have completely forgotten what was happening to our body. It's really nothing but a shift in the mind, a big shift in the mind that really has an effect, a healing effect on the body. There are many, many examples we can see. Usually something, an event like a stroke, which affects the brain, has very dire consequences for the body. But from our movement, we have the exalted example of His Holiness Jayapataka Swami Maharaj. We can see that the doctors had given up hope, but here he is amongst us, still preaching, still going strong, still inspiring all of us, because of his resolute mind dovetailed with the lotus feet of Krishna in Krishna consciousness. So really the whole issue, if we really want to make our life happy, if we really want to be happy, our whole focus should be how to heal the mind. If the mind is healed in Krishna consciousness, of course, then everything else follows. Then there are no problems. If the mind is happy, there are no problems, and the body is also healed and happy. This is not to minimize bodily problems. Yes, there are physiological problems, some of a very serious nature also. But this is to say that ultimately, everything depends on the mind. And also at a practical level, the more the mind is healed and fixed in Krishna consciousness, the less the bodily problems bother us. Either they subside or they affect us less. So now I'll talk about the second part, how all our problems are due to the mind. There is a purport. Actually, there's a verse, actually. This is from the Srimad Bhagavatam. So here I've only given the translation. This is 10th canto, chapter 1, verse 42. And so I guess we'll chant Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. I'm sorry, I didn't do that before. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So this reads, at the time of death, according to the thinking, feeling, and willing of the mind, which is involved in fruitive activities, one receives a particular body. In other words, the body develops according to the activities of the mind. Changes of body are due to the flickering of the mind, for otherwise the soul could remain in its original spiritual body. So this is showing us, so I'd like to focus in particular on the last sentence. Changes of body are due to the flickering of the mind. So meaning that, if the mind didn't have a flickering nature, our body wouldn't change. We wouldn't even grow up. We wouldn't go from boyhood to youth to old age and so forth. And if we extrapolate this, then we can understand how all the ailments of the body are ultimately due to the flickering of the mind. There's a verse by the Avanti Brahman. This is one of my favorite verses, actually, from the Srimad Bhagavatam. So it goes, Dvija vacha nayam janome sukha dukha hetur na devtatma graha karma kala manaparam karanam amananti samsara chakram parivartayedyat. The Brahmana said, these people are not the cause of my happiness and distress. Neither are the demigods, my own body, the planets, my past work or time. Rather, it is the mind alone that causes happiness and distress and perpetuates the rotation of material life. So many of you may be familiar, if not all of you, with the story of the Avanti Brahmana. I won't go into all the details, but basically, he was a little proud, and he was a little attached to his wealth and property. But his circumstances changed in a way that caused him to be rejected by everybody, including his immediate family, his friends, society, co-workers, everybody. People spat on him, children threw stones at him, they urinated on his food, and he was really reduced from, how they normally say from rags to riches, but he actually went from riches to rags. And he had no money, no shelter, and basically nothing to wear other than a little kopin. So, or at least that's the understanding I have. And here he is saying that it's not my astrology, my karma, it's not the devtas, it's not my body, it's not the other people. None of these are actually to blame. What is to blame is my mind. The mind alone causes happiness and distress and perpetuates the rotation of material life. So the Avanti Brahmana is basically confirming the same point that the previous verse was making, that if we simply focus on the mind and try to heal the mind in Krishna consciousness, then all the problems of our life can be solved. So I thought, now we can move on to the third section. This is where we'll spend the most time. And perhaps, if I end before time, then we can have a little bit of discussion. If not, then I can say some more things. So the question again is, how can we heal the mind? really the way to say this is, how can we capitalize on the healing power of the mind? The mind has immense healing power. As you know, hopefully all the examples and stories that I was relating was showing, that if we simply tap into the healing power of the mind, then everything can be healed, in our life. Um, so I have a little mnemonic here. Um, I thought of talking about three things that may help to capitalize on this healing power of the mind. The acronym is GPS. G for gratitude, P for staying in the present, and S for sense of purpose. My apologies, I couldn't come up with anything, you know, better or more standard. So I hope this is tolerable for everyone. So basically, it's a G and a P and an S. Gratitude, staying in the present, and having a sense of purpose. So we can start with talking, actually, it's the staying in the present and having a sense of purpose are actually related. So perhaps we can start with talking about having a sense of purpose. So, in Krishna consciousness, as in life in general, if we have a purpose, of course, in Krishna consciousness, we are really fortunate because we already have a purpose. The whole reason we are in Krishna consciousness is because we have a purpose. Our purpose is to love Krishna. Our purpose is to surrender to Krishna, and thereby perfect our life. And Srila Prabhupada says the purpose of human life is to inquire what is God and learn how to love Him. So that is a given, that we all have a purpose in Krishna consciousness. But then we could go a little bit more specific, how we can have sort of a more immediate sense of purpose in Krishna consciousness. Because what typically happens is we embark on the journey of Krishna consciousness. Everything is very, very nice in the first year or two. We are meeting devotees, everybody is shining, and we feel that we are the only fallen person. Everybody else is so advanced, which is true. And then we relish the association of devotees. Everything is going nicely. Even if there are problems, they don't seem to affect us so much. The whole universe seems to be scheming to keep us happy. And mercy of Krishna, is flowing, and so forth. But what tends to happen after a couple of years pass is that the anarthas of the mind start coming up. And this is natural in a way because in the beginning, everything, if you pick up any activity that's pleasurable in the beginning, we relish it a lot, and then sort of we get a little bit used to it, or the mind gets a little bit used to it, and labels it to be something. Put some material labels on it, and then it stops being as relishable as it used to be. And of course, there's also the point that our offenses catch up with us also. In the beginning, we have no idea what they are. But whatever the reason may be, we start feeling, a little bit lackluster. A lot of devotees start feeling a little bit lackluster. The enthusiasm is missing in japa. Even in kirtan, something that really is something that used to pick us up instantly, now does it, but it's not as quote unquote effective as it used to be, etc., etc. So I mean, whatever it may be, whatever the specific things might be for different people, the point is that we stop relishing Krishna consciousness the way we do when we start off. And so the reason is that we haven't yet found taste, right? We haven't yet found taste in devotional service. And this is synonymous with finding a purpose. If we have taste for a particular mode of devotional service or a particular service, then that automatically that gives us a purpose. It's synonymous. As soon as we have a purpose, we start relishing that particular service. So it's very, very important in Krishna consciousness to have a sense of purpose. Because if we don't have a sense of purpose and we are going on in Krishna consciousness, and then some challenges and difficulties come, then we are not able to pick ourselves back up. We are not able to, immerse ourselves in Krishna consciousness uh, like we do when there are no difficulties, or especially like we used to early on in our Krishna conscious journey. So therefore, it is very important to cultivate a sense of purpose. And this could be different for different people. Somebody might have, very somebody might enjoy reading Shastra a lot. So then we can cultivate that taste. Somebody might enjoy cooking for the deities. So then we can cultivate that taste. Somebody might enjoy doing kirtan, then that person can really try to organize that service in a way that they get to engage more and more in kirtan and help others to engage in kirtan. So whatever it may be, people might be really interested in preaching, so then they have a sense of purpose. They can organize, they can write, they can read, and they can present whatever they would like to in service to Srila Prabhupada and his devotees. So whatever it may be, cultivating a sense of purpose really helps. And so I have an example. So actually, maybe I'll talk about staying in the present, and then I will talk about the particular example that I had in mind. So staying in the present, again, is very, very important, because, life, as they say, life happens only in the present moment, meaning that you cannot really live in the future, and you cannot live in the past. We can only live in the present moment. Whatever is happening to us is happening in the present moment. We can conceptualize about the future, but that future as a time really is not something we can access until the present takes us there, and then that's the present. So really, what we have is the present. Or everything happens in the present, and the past is already gone. That's whatever happened in the past is not going to be changed. It cannot be undone. And what we are doing in the present is lamenting about the past. So that's also happening in the present, that we are lamenting about the past. And that hankering about the future, that's also happening in the present. So life is really lived in the present moment. This is not to say that we don't plan ahead. Of course, we need to plan ahead. It's not like, some sort of a naive notion that, stay in the present, ignore everything that's happening in life, just ignore life altogether, all the practical aspects of life. No, that's not what it means. It just means that we need to spend less time lamenting and hankering, and staying and spending more time focusing on Krishna. That can only happen in the present. We can only be Krishna conscious in the present. So, yeah, so in japa particularly, this is very helpful. Krishna says, there's a verse in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, from wherever the mind wanders, one should practice bringing it back to the self. So that basically means we're chanting japa, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. And our mind will no doubt wander. That is natural. That is human. It is not really an offense that the mind wanders. That's an anartha. We're attached to the material energy. So naturally the mind will wander. But the offense is to be inattentive while we are chanting. So that means that we are not attentive to our mind wandering. What we have to do is be attentive to that mind wandering and bring it back to the holy name, which we are chanting right now in the present. So, from wherever the mind wanders due to its flickering nature, bring it back to the self. O son of Partha, Pritha. And so this particular practice can be extended to Krishna consciousness in general. It's very helpful in japa, but we can extend it to Krishna consciousness in general. Whatever's happening in our life, it doesn't matter. Let's say that, again, let's take the headache example. Let's say we didn't sleep very well And I'll say why I'm using this example in a minute. We didn't sleep very well, and we have a headache, or we're not, whatever, our whole day was spent taking care of our health issues. But right now it's still there. It's a little bit lingering, but it's going. All right, it's a fresh start. We can begin again. We can now chant the holy name again. We can again stay focused on Krishna, and in this way keep bringing our life back to the present. Let's not live in the past. Let's not worry about what happened all day. Let's not worry about how the rest of the day is going to go. Let's focus on this fresh chance that we have right now in the present moment. So I have an example. There was a retreat that was organized in our ISKCON of DC congregation by Vrajvihari Prabhu. And maybe Raktak Prabhu may be familiar with this style of retreat. It was called Alone with Krishna. And I believe His Grace Purijan Prabhu does this retreat at Govardhan. And so basically the same model was adopted by Vrajvihari Prabhu here. And he and alone with Krishna basically means that there are some meditations, there are some reflections, but the majority of the time is spent by ourselves. So the temple has a beautiful natural setting, and we were allowed to be either inside the temple or outside the temple, and we could chant japa, we could write, or we could read. They had a packet that had a collection of purports and verses, select verses from the Bhagavatam and Srila Prabhupada's purports that we could read. So basically, there were 2-hour sessions where we were alone with Krishna, and we could read or write or chant, and in this way connect to Krishna and try to stay in the present moment. So the reason I was giving the examples I was giving was because this particular day when we had the retreat in the morning, I hadn't been sleeping very well. And so this morning, it sort of came to a head, that I was very low on sleep. I was feeling dizzy and I had a headache. And even before driving, I wasn't sure whether actually I should drive into the retreat or not. But then I thought, why not? Let me just go. So I went, and let's see what Krishna may have in store. So I went, and part of the um, part of the program methodology was to create a little altar, a beautiful little altar. We were asked to bring pictures. We could bring pictures of our deities, pictures of Srila Prabhupada that we liked, any picture of anything that inspires us in Krishna consciousness. So they had a little wooden plank, and we created our little altar there. We were sitting on the floor. We had this altar created in front of us. We offered incense and flowers, and then we planted the incense in a little bucket in the temple room. And as my luck would have it, I'm allergic to prolonged exposure to incense. So I cannot take too much incense smoke, or any kind of smoke for that matter. And now this was a small temple room. This is not the new ISKCON of DC temple. We were in the old temple room, so it's kind of a small temple room. And it was filled with the wonderful smell of incense, which unfortunately I am allergic to. So I started to have an even bigger headache than I was having when I got in. Fortunately, by Krishna's mercy, we had the option of being alone with Krishna either inside the temple room in that beautiful atmosphere, at least for most, and really for me also, which I couldn't relish, or outside in the grounds of the temple. And so initially for a minute I contemplated, because I thought perhaps it'll subside, just hoping for a little wishful thinking. But then I decided, no, this is not working. So then I picked up my beads and my notebook and my packet, and I went outside. And I started chanting outside. The first round, okay, it was fine. And that was the first round of the day for me also. And then by the time I got to the second round, I was feeling like I cannot go on. This is just not possible. And then the sun started bearing down. It's a summer day. It wasn't a cloudy day that day. So the sun started beating down. And, I was like, okay, now all the odds are against me. I have no idea what I'm going to do. So, okay, Krishna, I don't know. I thought about getting into my car, either driving away back home, which is 40 minutes away. There was no question of coming back, or taking a nap in the car, which probably wouldn't work. Um, and then I thought about these prompts that they gave us. They gave us these prompts for each session that we are alone with Krishna. That was kind of a writing prompt. And so there were a couple of writing prompts for the morning 2 hour session and a couple of writing prompts for the afternoon session. So the first prompt that I opened up for the morning session was talk to Krishna, tell him the story of your life. It's like, okay, at this point, I, I'm very much attracted to doing something like this. So let me open up my notebook and start writing. So I started writing and started telling Krishna the story of my life, which basically he has written, but I started telling him that story. And I was writing, and I at this point, this was the point when I sort of turned off the past, what had happened with me the whole day, and I started tuning into the present. Because when I was writing, I was not thinking of the fact that I'm having a headache or that I'm feeling dizzy, or that, it feels hopeless right now. I was not thinking any of those things. I was just writing. Even if my mind kind of, sort of opened the door, knocked on the door, okay, I want to talk about that, I want to think about that, I would kind of bring it back to the task at hand, which was basically talking to Krishna, writing to Krishna. Um, so it wasn't just a mundane writing exercise. The bonus was that it was connected to Krishna, so it was easier to stay focused on that. And so I wrote and I wrote and I wrote. I wrote maybe 4 pages of this particular size notebook, this particular size page. And at the end of those 4 pages, even though I didn't write anything significant, it was just the fact that I was connecting to Krishna in a way that was possible for me at the time, due to my particular psychophysical nature, maybe due to that particular topic that appealed to me at that time. By the mercy of Krishna, by good fortune, I was able to engage my mind in that way. So by the end of those 4 pages, now I felt that my mind was calm and that I could go back to chanting. And so I was able to chant 2 more rounds, chant Gayatri by Krishna's mercy. And by that time, the morning session was over. And I went back in with a renewed sense of energy and purpose. And I would not have been able to do this, quite frankly, if the context of the retreat wasn't there. I knew that devotees were there. In the association of devotees, it's easier to bring the mind back to the present. And so Krishna was kind that he allowed me to do that. And it was easier with that taste I had, okay, we are together, we are in this retreat for a purpose. We are doing this together. We are here to connect with Krishna. That's my purpose. That's more important than my physical health. That's more important than my job concerns. That's more important than my family concerns right now. All these things are not important right now. What's important is my purpose right now, which is I'm here with devotees to connect with Krishna. I'm here for this retreat. And that really takes center stage. That is the most important thing right now. And so with that sense of purpose, which was the previous point, it was easy to enter that present moment and to connect with Krishna in that present moment. And yes, we may have to be creative, we may have to be intelligent about it. What works for me to connect to Krishna in the present moment? What works for me? If we are really feeling really tired, sometimes taking a nap is the answer. I take 20-minute naps often when I haven't had enough rest, and that gives me a renewed energy. Or it could just be, just turn off the mind, grab the japa beads, and just step outside. And often, what I do, I'm sharing personal examples, but please, um, devotees, please apply this to your personal context, whatever works best for you. When I'm sometimes feeling down due to either the body or circumstances or whatever it may be, I grab my japa mala and I just step outside the door. Um, and if it's a really hot day, at least I take a chair and I sit on the porch and I start chanting. If it's a little bearable, then I start walking, or sometimes I sit, whatever, it depends on the day. But basically, the point is that I'm giving my mind a fresh start. I'm giving the mind a change in context. And then I tell myself, what problems do I have right now? And the answer, really, the correct answer is, I have no problems right now in Krishna consciousness. Maybe we can practice saying this. We don't have to unmute. If you like, you can unmute. But wherever you are, perhaps we can just say this a couple of times. I have no problems in Krishna consciousness. So let's try that just as an exercise. Again, you can unmute if you want, but you don't have to. So we'll just practice this. I have no problems right now in Krishna consciousness. I have no problems right now in Krishna consciousness. I have no problems right now in Krishna consciousness. So it really helps. It really helps. And yeah, the main thing is to yena kena prakarena, Sri Rupa Goswami said, somehow or other connect to Krishna. And bringing the mind back to the present moment is a wonderful tool to connect to Krishna. Yes, we all have problems. Yes, sometimes the problems are unbearable, sometimes unspeakable. But whatever it is, it can be helped by connecting the mind to Krishna in the present moment. I once heard from a devotee that, he asked this question, what are the two best words in the English language? And then he gave the answer, next time. Next time. It's okay. This didn't work out this time. It's all right. Next time. I wasn't able to do this service to the best of my ability. It's all right. Next time. I didn't have a proper interaction. I didn't really interact properly with that devotee as I should have. Okay. Next time. I will try better. Now I know. Next time. My job presentation didn't work so well, or my colleagues didn't really have a good impression of what I did there. It's all right. Next time. The wonderful thing about the philosophy of Krishna consciousness is that it tells us that we are eternal. We are not temporary, we are eternal. Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita to Arjuna, never was there a time when you or I did not exist. Neither any of these kings, nor there shall ever be a time when we shall cease to exist. We are eternal. And the fact that we are eternal, it takes the pressure off. It takes the pressure off because there is always next time. There is always next time. We are eternal, we don't have to go as far as the end of this life. And if, in rare cases, even if one does, by the mercy of Krishna, devotees will not only get a human form of life, but will take birth in a devotionally inclined family or a family that is very favorable, has very favorable circumstances for practicing Krishna consciousness. But for most of us, really, on a day-to-day, month-to-month, year-to-year basis, we can say we are eternal. Next time. We haven't really lost anything. We haven't really lost anything. We sit down to chant japa, right? We grab the bead bag, we sit down to chant japa. And in those 2 hours or whatever time we are spending chanting japa, it seems that all the problems of the world are being created right now. All the problems of the world are being created right now as I'm chanting japa. And where are those problems being created? Yes, that's right. They're being created in the mind. They're not actually happening. The world doesn't change during our japa. The world is exactly where it was when we sat down for our japa. But the mind comes up with all these things that we seemingly hadn't thought about before, or worries or concerns that seem so pressing or so immediate. But really, the world hasn't changed since we started chanting japa, and it will not change when we are done chanting japa. Even if so-and-so becomes president, Donald Trump becomes president or does not become president, these are things that keep changing anyway. So these are not like, earth-shattering changes. The real changes that seem to concern us happen in our own mind. So we can tell the mind, why am I lamenting about this? Whatever I'm lamenting about, it's okay. I've been through this so many times. I've been through this cycle so many times. And each time I've come out of it. Each time I've come out by Krishna's grace. So why should I spend so much time worrying about it right now? Or we can say, okay, fine, it's a real problem, it's a concern, but I won't forget it, after I'm chanting japa. Let me at least chant japa nicely, and I'll revisit it later. A lot of devotees make, write things down before their japa as a service to their japa, sort of to-do lists or whatever that helps them get things off their chest. But whatever works, the point is that, we haven't really lost anything. There will be a good day when things will seem completely fine and normal and we won't have any of these worries. And that good day is going to come. We know this, right? Our quota of happiness and distress is fixed prior. We cannot really change it. We can make some little adjustments here and there, change the order of things a little bit, but really our happiness and distress is fixed at the time of birth. So we cannot change that. What we can change is our connection to Krishna in the present moment. That, by using our free will to connect to Krishna spiritually, by proper use of our free will, that can go a long way. That can go a long way in taking us out of this samsara chakra and this bondage of the material energy. And that's what we are here to do. So whatever the mind does, it's okay. Let's not take the mind so seriously. Let's not take the mind so seriously. We often spend so much time worrying about things that are completely trivial. Even in a material sense, they don't amount to much. I don't have any statistics on this, but if I had to guess, and don't take this like so seriously, but if I just had to guess, I would guess that most people probably spend 80% of their time thinking about completely useless things, even from a material point of view, completely useless, like repeating the same thought, worrying about the same thing, going in a cycle. And that's probably the difference between people who are effective, even in the material world, and people who are, typical, normal people in the material world. That the effective people probably don't waste time on over worrying about things. But again, if they're engaged in a material pursuit, then it's shramevi kevalam. What is the point of that? If you have that ability, better use that in Krishna consciousness. Then it's glorious. Then it's glorious. Then it's like that one in front of all those zeros that we have. So the whole point is to make the mind our best friend, not our worst enemy. We want to engage the mind positively in Krishna consciousness, give it a sense of purpose, give it some taste in Krishna consciousness, bring it back to the present moment, and cultivate gratitude. Cultivate gratitude. So I won't read the whole purport, but the point here is basically, to give a little prelude to this, is that whatever's happening in our life, if we see it as the hand of Krishna, then it becomes much easier to live our life. It becomes much easier to tolerate the distresses and much easier to connect to Krishna. If we honestly look back on our life, honestly see everything that has been happening in our life, especially since Krishna consciousness, everything that's been happening, Krishna has been there for us. We cannot honestly, if we're honest, we cannot deny that Krishna has always been there. He's always taking care of things. Oh, that thing that could really have gone wrong, that didn't go wrong. Why? Because Krishna was there. That could have gone wrong. That could have gone wrong. That could have gone wrong. Oh, it didn't. Why? Because Krishna was there. He saved me every time. And all the ways in which he didn't seem to save me, well, there's an answer for that also. Those things that Krishna apparently let me suffer through are the things I needed to go through in order to get purification, in order to develop my love for Krishna. It's Krishna's love. It's nothing but Krishna's love. That is like a father to a child, a father who's training his child, really out of deep love. All those things that I'm going through, every second, they're helping me grow. And every moment that I go through those challenges, I'm if I have a sincere attitude in Krishna consciousness, then I'm growing in my love for Krishna. I'm growing as a person. I'm growing in my love for Krishna. And so if you just remember that, it becomes much easier. So I'll quickly read some parts of two purports, and then I'll summarize. So learned devotees accept even conditions of distress as representing the presence of the Supreme Lord. When a devotee is in distress, he sees that the Lord has appeared as distress, just to relieve or purify the devotee from the contamination of the material world. So it is said that Krishna will never give us a test that we cannot pass. It may seem unpassable, but we just have to muster everything we have and gather all our resources, our prayers, our surrender, whatever we can muster, and just try to do the best we can. If we are doing our best, nobody can find fault with us. So we really have to just try our best. And Krishna is present, even though there may be times when we are calling out to Krishna, usually he responds. But those times when we are really calling out and he seems not to respond, he seems not to be there, he's very much present. He's very, very, very much present. He's just waiting for us to turn to him in a way. We just have to go through this in order to come to that level. There is really nothing else. That's what surrender is. We don't question the Lord. We don't try to real surrender. We don't even try to understand why we are going through this. We are trying our best to just, accept whatever the Lord has given us as purification. And in this way, we are trying to develop our love for Krishna. That is real love, and we are all trying to get to that stage of love or surrender. And so, while one is within this material world, one is in various conditions, and therefore a devotee sees a condition of distress as but another feature of the Lord. Tatyanukampam susamikshamana. A devotee therefore regards distress as a great favor of the Lord because he understands that he's being cleansed of contamination. So this is the verse that Srila Prabhupada referenced in the previous purport. In the interest of time, let's just quickly read the translation. My dear Lord, one who earnestly waits for you to bestow your causeless mercy upon him, all the while patiently suffering the reactions of his past misdeeds and offering you respectful obeisances with his heart, words, and body, is surely eligible for liberation, for it has become his rightful claim. And this is the purport. It's by the servants of Srila Prabhupada from the 11th canto. I will read the last part of this last paragraph. Such a bona fide servant of the Lord, considering all hardship a small price to pay for gaining the personal association of the Lord, certainly becomes a legitimate son of God, as indicated here by the words Dai Bhag. Just as one cannot approach the sun without becoming fire, one cannot approach the supreme pure Lord Krishna without undergoing a rigid purificatory process, which may appear like suffering, but which is in fact a curative treatment administered by the personal hand of the Lord. So again, this is the same point, that the Lord is very much there. He's looking out for us, and this is only out of love that he's giving us this situation. Bhurijan Prabhu makes this point in his book that, the point that I was getting at before, that Krishna is very much present. He's not a merciless God who is distant in a faraway place. He's right here with us every moment. And he really, really takes a very vested interest in our life, which is the reason that we are going through the situations that we are. Whatever past karma that we need to go through, we are going through that. The rest he has taken away from us. That rest we don't have to go through. But he's present, he's watching us, he's just waiting for us to turn to him in a loving way. And he's not a heartless God, as some may imagine. He's very much a personal, loving, all compassionate Lord. And that's Krishna's nature. He cannot leave his devotee alone. He has a vested interest in the life of the devotee, and he has a vested interest in seeing his devotee happy. So So to sum up this point, if we have gratitude for Krishna, if we have gratitude for everything that's happening by Krishna's arrangement in our life, then that really helps us connect to Krishna. That really helps us to um, tap into that healing power of the mind, because then the mind, when it's connected to Krishna, it's happy and it starts healing. And once the mind starts healing, like I said at the beginning of the talk, that basically addresses everything. Our whole purpose in life is to connect our mind to Krishna. If we can dovetail our mind in Krishna consciousness, really all our problems are solved. That's not me speaking, that's Srila Prabhupada saying, that's the Shastra saying, that's sages like the Avanti Brahmana saying, that's all the learned devotees of the Lord saying, that basically dovetail the mind in the lotus feet, at the lotus feet of the Lord, and solve all the problems of life. So I'll summarize now. We started talking about how the mind is really powerful. We gave some negative examples and some positive examples to convince ourselves how much the mind dictates our life. We talked about how all the problems are ultimately due to the mind. We spoke about the verse by the Avanti Brahmana, and we gave other examples as well. And we established that if we heal the mind, then we can solve all our problems. So how do we do that? I shared a little sort of formula here by this acronym GPS: gratitude, staying in the present moment, and having a sense of purpose. This is just something to try. It's not, an absolute thing in and of itself, but it helps me a lot. If it helps you, then I'll be very much consider this effort worthwhile. So I will stop here and see if anybody would like to say anything, or if Prabhu would like to make announcements, and we can have discussion later if there's time. So thank you all very much for patiently listening. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Karunavatara Prabhu, for the nice session. I think it's good to have these important practical classes. I was hearing one lecture recently, and it said that it's good to know the principles, but wisdom actually is knowing how to apply those principles according to our life situation. So I think that's what you also mentioned. We have to be practical in our approach, and when you mentioned about calm the mind, not agitate it too much. So thank you for sharing all those things with us. So before we jump into Q&A, I just wanted to share a couple of things with our congregation. So I'll share my screen for a second. That's okay. And then we can have question answers if there are any. Give me 1 second. So I hope everyone can see my screen. This is the ISKCON of Bergen County website with the beautiful DT Shinimanita and Shirada Shamsundar. And then these are all the sessions that the upcoming sessions, and today's sessions is listed here. Then we have a Sunday program. As always, we also have our weekly Bhakti Vriksha in different parts of New Jersey. So if you or any of your friends are interested in attending, then please let us know, and then we can get you connected accordingly, depending upon where you live. We also have a Bhagavad Gita reading from Monday to Friday between 12 and 12:15. And then we have a daily japa session in the morning from 6 to 8 Eastern. So if you're free, if you're available, feel free to join those sessions as well. We have our Vaishnava calendars, which has a list of all the upcoming festivals, Ekadashi dates, for easy reference. So if you want, you can also view those here. And if any of you have missed or any of our previous sessions and would like to revisit those or visit those, then you can just go to our website and you can hear all those. They are all listed here. Thanks to Ram Tulsi Prabhu. and his team that works tirelessly behind the scenes putting these things together. So thank you. Um, with that, I can stop sharing my screen and we can go into question and answers. So devotees can either come off mute or they can just post their message in the chat and I can read it out. I know we had a couple of questions. I think Poonam Mataji has a question. Poonam Mataji, feel free to come off mute and go ahead.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna.
Uh, Thank you so much for giving a like enlightening lecture. I have a question regarding controlling your mind, heart, and there is one more thing I'm forgetting. I've learned from Krishna consciousness. So y- you I'm just curious, like how do they behave in like how do they behave, like when you're out of the situation and you are trying to come to the present moment? That's what your lecture context was, right? How to become come back in the present moment.
Yes. And so your question is that basically, if there's something really big that's bothering us, how do we come out from that, from the grip of the mind and go into the present moment? Is that the question?
Yes, how heart is behaving differently and how mind is behaving differently. And
Mm.
there is one more thing, I think I learned from Krishna consciousness, but there are three things I learned. I don't know what is the third thing called. Like, is it a wisdom or something else is called? So
Okay.
that is beyond the mind, basically. So how are they behaving? How difficult is to there is this controlling, how you control to let them come back to the present moment, basically. That's
Yeah.
what my question is. And how, which one is easier to control?
Mm. It's a very nice question. Yeah, actually, what we want to do, first of all, we have to acknowledge that the the mind is really, really strong. It's really strong. And so there is no way that we can come into the present moment without the mercy of Krishna. Yeah, we can use tools, but really it has to be with Krishna in the center. And having Krishna in the center, then we try to bring our mind back into the present moment, or we try to come back to the present and and connect to Krishna. Whatever it is, it has to be dovetailed with Krishna. It cannot be just an independent mechanical effort to come back to the present moment. And the mind can be, you're absolutely right. It could be like the grips of the jaws of a crocodile, like Gajendra. Uh, Gajendra was gripped by this crocodile, and that grip was really strong. So sometimes the grip of the mind is very, very strong. Not sometimes. I mean, we experience this all the time. And the mind has its obsessive nature. The mind has its phobias. The mind has um, its anxieties. It really grips us and it doesn't let go of us, like the foot of Gajendra was gripped by that crocodile. And yes, all of us have a knot in the heart. Perhaps what I've heard is heart, mind, and intellect. I don't know if that's
Intellect,
what you.
yes, yes, yes. That was the word, like I was forgetting. Yes,
Yeah.
intellect was the word, third word. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. So there are these different levels. Um, Krishna says, he talks about in the Bhagavad Gita the seating places of lust, and he talks about the mind and the intelligence. Um, but coming back to the context of your question, there is a knot in the heart, right? That granthi, that knot in the heart is very much present. And because of that knot in the heart, we have all kinds of distractions in our life that try to take us away from Krishna. And especially when we are chanting our japa. When we are chanting our japa, which is really the most important activity of the day in one sense, it is trying to, the mind tries to take us away from Krishna.
Mm-hmm.
So the heart can only be happy and satisfied in Krishna consciousness. And if the heart is fully satisfied, then the mind is automatically pacified. Then it's much easier to control and pacify the mind. But
Okay.
yeah, so the whole effort in Krishna consciousness is to really um, purify the heart. Cheto darpana marjanam. Cheto darpana marjanam. The more we chant the holy name in the association of devotees, the more we take the association of devotees by their mercy, by the holy name's mercy, our heart starts to get cleansed and purified. And the more that our heart is purified, the more we will be able to connect to Krishna, and the less the mind will bother us when we are trying to connect to Krishna. The mind has a nature of chattering, like I was saying before. It's not an offense that the mind is getting distracted, but we have to bring it back to Krishna. It'll chatter. It's the nature of the monkey mind. It'll always chatter. But whenever
Mm-hmm.
we observe that it's going away from the holy name or going away from the present moment, our connection to Krishna, whatever service we are doing, we have to bring it back. That's our effort. And we won't
Mm-hmm.
lose anything. That's the point I was making. We won't lose anything. Because whatever the mind is chattering right now, if it's important, it'll come back later. If it's not important, then good riddance, it went away. Good. We were able to focus on Krishna. That's how in the material world effective people work. They are very focused. They don't let little things distract them. We have to be that way, but as devotees of Krishna, we have to be present and focused in our service to Krishna. And yeah, so it's really a matter of satisfying the heart, Chetodarpana Marjanam. And then, it's much, much easier to control the mind. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
and it becomes a much easier problem. Yeah, but the way we clean our heart is again by from wherever the mind wanders, bring it back to the holy name. Srila Prabhupada gave an example that if you're flying in an airplane and the window is closed and the airplane takes off, we only saw the ground when the window was open, when we were sitting in the airplane. But now we don't know where we are. But then we open the window, we look down, and we see, oh wow, we have come actually this far. And so it's the same thing with Krishna consciousness, with chanting the holy name. We chant, it starts off first few months, 6 months, 1 year, 2 years, 5 years, 10 years. And we are making progress all the time. If we look back to where we were earlier, there is Chetodarpana Marjanam. The heart is getting cleansed. And so basically, we shouldn't lose hope in Krishna consciousness, because it's millions of lifetimes of conditioning that we are undoing. And in one lifetime, by Srila Prabhupada's mercy, we have the hope of going back to Godhead. So yeah, we should take solace in how far we have come by Krishna's mercy, and have the hope that we will attain the lotus feet of Krishna by the mercy of his devotees. If they so desire in this very lifetime by their mercy, if possible. Although I'm completely unqualified, although I have no chance, although my heart is full of entanglements, full of lust, full of these problems, yet so there is no hope. From one point of view, there is no hope. Left to myself, what hope is there? Just look at my conditioning. Just look at where my mind goes. There is no hope. But there is hope, because we have Krishna consciousness. We have the mercy of devotees. We have the mercy of Srila Prabhupada. And we have seen miracles. What to speak of other people, we see miracles in our own life. We just have to look back and see, how far we have come. And
Mm-hmm.
it might seem tiny, uh, it's a big jump compared to where we were, and we have a very long way to go even compared to that. But we have to have hope. We are instructed to have hope. It's one of the items of surrender, that we have faith. And yeah, we just hold on to Krishna. Cheto darpana marjanam, our heart will be cleansed. So yeah, I hope that answers or addresses your question.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Prabhuji.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Thank
Hare
you,
Krishna.
Poonam Mataji. Thank you, Prabhu, for the answer. There are a couple of more questions in the chat. I saw Kirit Patel is from DC, is asking, I thought the world is continuously changing. And just to give some context, I think he mentioned this he put this in the chat when you were talking about that the world will not change while we are chanting. So we should not focus on what is happening, politics, etc., etc. So he just mentioned, I thought the world is continuously changing. And he said, I believe Krishna said, Parivartan samsar ka niyam hai.
Hmm. Right.
So,
Yeah, it
yes.
is. 1 second. Let me look at the. Yeah, is Kirit Prabhu here? I don't know if his question was answered as I was speaking, but if he's here, then if you would like to ask.
Yeah, I'm here.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna. Nice lecture. I got some good points from your lecture. But I thought that you mentioned that the world is not going to, or it's not changing while we are chanting, or I think the reason people or we do the chanting is to focus our mind on Krishna. That's for sure. But at the same time, simultaneously, the world is trying to get your attention and the world is changing. Of course, we think back about the past and then we have anxiety about the future. So the mind, I thought when you mentioned the hypothesis is the mind is strong, but in Bhagavad Gita, I think Arjuna had the problem because his mind was getting weak because of all the thoughts he was having about fight. And he says, I'm strong enough to stop the wind with my arrows, but I cannot stop my mind from going and not focusing on what needs to be done. So I think your whole lecture was, I think, based on mind is strong. So I don't know, it's a little bit at the other end of taking it positive of mind being strong rather than mind being weak.
Yes. Yeah, thank you very much for that question. So I'll talk about the first part first. When I said that nothing will change when we sit down for japa and by the time we have got up from our japa. And I apologize. Sometimes I speak in a little bit of a kind of a pretentious way. I know I have that tendency. So, I might have just made a flourish. The point is that, nothing significant is going to change. Obviously, the nature of the material world is that it's always changing. That's the nature of reality. Every second, the cells in our body are dying, new cells are coming. We look ourselves in the mirror, we don't realize, but our body is already changed. So yeah, there is nothing that is constant in this world. The only rule or the only constant in this world is change, as they say. But what I meant is that it is not something significant that demands our attention, whatever's happening in the world, in politics, this or that. It's not really important right now. And there can be bigger problems in life. Most people are fortunate enough to have usual problems that the mind makes really big. But then there are some cases where problems can be real. There could be some emergencies in the family or something like that. So by no means am I implying that those problems are not real. What I'm saying is that if ultimately our connection to Krishna is what will solve all problems, and the connection to Krishna is the most important thing in life. It doesn't mean that if something requires our attention, something requires us to go do something practical, we say, okay, no, I have to finish this much amount of japa before I attend to that, and then something, some catastrophe might occur. No, it means always doing everything as a servant of Krishna. And if we cultivate this attitude, we remain connected to Krishna. Our connection to Krishna is the ultimate and most important thing and is the foundation of everything that we do. So I hope that that point is clear. And in terms of the mind being strong, the mind is, so Arjuna says to Krishna, Chanchalam himana Krishna, pramati balavadranam. Tasyam nigraham manye vayureva sudushkaram. So he says, like you quoted, that the mind is really obstinate. It is it is always flickering, and it is very, very determined, very strong. And so to control the mind is harder than to control the wind. The wind is very strong, but to control the mind is even harder than to control the wind. And like you said, Arjun actually knew how to control the wind, but he couldn't control the mind. So the weakness actually is a weakness that, weakness of the heart that leads to the mind not being controlled. You can say hriday daurbalyam, that is the weakness. Yeah, I mean, the mind is so strong that it overpowers us, it overpowers our intelligence, it overpowers our good sense, and it makes us do what it wants to do. Sometimes when we are in the grips of the mind, it's really hard to come out of the grips of the mind because it's really strong. It doesn't let go. It wants to think about that one thing. And no matter what we do, it wants to focus on that. So it's a powerful enemy in that case. So we are the ones who are weak because we fall prey to a strong enemy. So the weakness is in us. The mind is not us, right? The mind is basically part of our subtle body, but we are not the mind. And our job is to control the mind through proper intelligence connected to the self, connected to Krishna, right? We want to connect to Krishna and gain good intelligence to control the mind, which is very strong otherwise. So that's the point, that the enemy is very strong and we are weak. But if we become strong, then we can overpower the strong enemy, which in this case is the mind. Does that answer your question, Prabhu?
Yes, nice. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very
Correct.
much.
Thank you, Prabhu. And there's one last question by Partha Prabhu. It's an interesting one. He says, if the solution to some questions come while chanting, do I take as distractions or Dadami Buddhi Yogam Tam?
um, is Partha Prabhu here?
Yes,
Yes,
Partha
yes,
Prabhu.
oh, yeah, Krishna.
Hare Krishna Prabhu. So the reason I'm asking is because, so when I read this, I took it as a spiritual answer to some spiritual question, and I just would just request you to clarify if that's what you meant.
Spiritual, because we are in a material body, sometimes the material impediments also come in the way of spiritual sadhana. So, yes, spiritual, material, both.
Okay. Yeah, that's a nice question. If it's a spiritual answer to something that we have been thinking about in Krishna consciousness, absolutely, I would say absolutely yes. I take that as the Dami Buddhi Yogam Tam, because Krishna says, like you're quoting here, basically, chapter 10, verse 10 of the Bhagavad Gita, that whoever is dedicated to serving me with love, to them I give the intelligence or understanding by which they can come to me. So Krishna is giving intelligence to the sincere practitioner. And if there's something that we have sincerely been worrying about or concerned about in our service to Krishna, in our approach to Krishna, in our whatever aspect of our connection to Krishna, however trivial it might seem, if the answer comes while we are chanting, I would definitely take that as the Dami Buddhi Yogam Tam. And if it's a solution to a problem that we are having at work, some technical solution comes to us, because our japa was, okay, I was chanting, maybe nicely, maybe not nicely. It really would depend from case to case. But if the answer to that technical problem comes, in a positive sense, one could take it as Krishna's mercy. Okay, fine. Now I should get into the holy name with more enthusiasm and more rigor. Now that worry is off my chest. I can take it as Krishna's mercy. Okay, that came to me. Now let me just get more into my japa. I wasn't trying to get that answer, but somehow it came to me fine. There are levels of japa. If we are doing our best japa, probably those kinds of solutions will not come to our mind. But let's say we are doing not so great japa, and that some solution comes to our mind, then we should take that as sort of an impetus, or some kind of special okay, this came to me, I can move on now. Fine, I don't have to worry about this. I'll take it in a positive way and try to dovetail this answer that came in the strength of my japa. So now I will do better japa. Now that's off my chest. But yeah, to begin with, if I'm doing good japa, that kind of an answer would likely not come. It would more likely happen if you're doing good japa, that problem will get solved anyway, or we'll get that answer later. We never lose out by doing good japa. That's the point. So yeah, if we are doing good japa and that doesn't come, that's a big gain. If you're doing a lower level of japa and somehow that answer comes, I can just say, okay, fine, it came, and I can move on. But I shouldn't be thinking about um, you know uh, material problems when I'm chanting japa. That shouldn't be the focus. The focus should be, the effort should be to bring the mind back to the holy name, as Krishna advises. So does that answer your question, Prabhu?
Yes, Prabhu. Yes, Prabhu. Yes. Consciously, of course, we will try to keep it at the lotus feet of Krishna. If it comes, irrespective of that, so that is the question. So yes, that yeah. So we can keep it as a take it as a kind of a Krishna's
Yes.
mercy and keep it aside, and again reconcentrate ourselves to the lotus feet of Krishna.
Yes,
Yeah.
Prabhu, because it could depend on case to case. There could be context, but sometimes it could happen that we are doing fairly good japa, not wonderful japa, but fairly good japa relative to our own level. And, mind feels a little bit free, it feels a little bit relaxed or free because of our japa. And then in that feeling of free, something that we have been thinking of, something that's been in our subconscious mind, suddenly we get an answer to that. Fine, no problem. Okay, great, we got the answer. Now we can focus more on our japa. So it could be, case to case thing. But yeah, that was a nice question. Definitely, if it's a spiritual answer, I would definitely say that it's coming from Krishna as a result of my japa. That's the way I would take it, especially if it's a sincere musing that I've had in Krishna consciousness.
Hare Krishna. Thank you.
Krishna, thank you for the question.